Hi folks, Tim with SGI Property Management, covering some frequently asked questions that we get from new clients. And today's question that we're covering is, hey, I have a home that is already occupied. Can I transfer that home to SGI? So the answer to that is yes, you can. And the circumstances differ from there. So part of the time when a property owner asks this question, it is they're in a bad situation with the resident. Perhaps they're self-managing and the tenant's behind on rent, or combative, or whatever the situation is. And so if that's your situation, then absolutely happy to help. That's what we're here for. We roll our sleeves up and figure out the situation with you, whatever that is. Perhaps it's not that situation, and you've got a good resident in there, and maybe you're transitioning out of managing the home yourself and want to transfer it to a property management company. You're transitioning from one property management company to another, perhaps. So both of those situations, we can absolutely help with that. And we handle each one of those a little bit differently on the self-managed versus professionally managed. One of the things that we want to do when we do transition a property over is we want to get a copy of the existing lease agreement, because depending on the state that you're in, most times that lease agreement stays in place. So it's then our job to enforce the lease agreement that we want to make sure that we get a chance to read through it first, understand it, and make sure that we can agree, or can indeed enforce and manage that lease agreement. So that lease agreement kind of transitions over with the resident, and we operate under that lease agreement until it's time to renew. And then at that point, we'll get them on one of our lease agreements, should the property owner decide that's what they want to do. So lease agreement's important. The security deposit is also important, depending on the state that you're in as well. You want to make sure that resident's aware if their security deposit is moving. So if you're moving from one management company and bringing the property over to SGI, that security deposit will go from that broker's trust account to our trust account as well. We've got to give the residents advance notice that money's moving, and so we want to make sure that we've got a little bit of time to do that and do it correctly, so that we stay within the confines of the state requirements there. So security deposit is important there. And lastly, anytime we bring a resident on board and bring a new property on board, we want to make sure that we're aware of the resident situation and have their contact information so that we can onboard the resident correctly. So we want to make sure that we can get all the information in their hands ahead of time, or as soon as possible, because we want to make sure they, of course, know exactly how to pay rent and when to pay rent and where to pay rent. If a maintenance item comes up, we want to make sure that they've got all the methods available to submit that maintenance request, or call an emergency number, or whatever the case is, just so that we don't have any hiccups in a transition. So we want to make sure that we onboard the resident appropriately as well. So quick answer to the question is yes, we can and will bring on tenant-occupied properties, and the situations just kind of go from there. If you'd like to give us a call and talk about your specific situation with your resident, happy to do so. Happy to speak with you via phone if you want. 877-208-8776. Thanks.